Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Puente with the Long Beach Post, and happy MLK Day. I'm here with our Vice Mayor, Councilman Rex Richardson. And in honor of Martin Luther King Day, we're going to talk about a very important issue in Long Beach that we've been working on over the last year. The city called Long Beach's Framework for Reconciliation, and it focuses on equity in Long Beach. And we got some good news about the progress and moving forward with that. And you can post your questions here and we'll try to get them answered. But anyway, Rex, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Rex has
Sure
been
thing.
a main,
Thanks for the invitation.
thank you. Rex has been key person behind the scenes and for, working on this whole plan for Long Beach. So yeah, Rex, give us a little bit of an update on how we're working with this so far.
Sure. So first, thanks for the invitation. Come in and talk. I think it's really timely conversation given what we're celebrating today, MLK Day. And in Long Beach, we typically celebrate that through days of service. We even this year, Leadership Long Beach has continued that tradition of Day of Service. It's all based on King's quote: "Anyone can be great because anyone can serve." And so today, I want to thank everyone who's been involved in the Day of Service projects. We have one in our district at our field office, preparing care packages. And so if you want more information on that, visit leadershiplongbeach.org. So today's King Day, and it's really timely. Just the things that are happening in our nation, parallels and correlations to, the lessons we've learned from the past. The civil rights movement in the 60s, the incidents we've seen at the Capitol, the discussion inside, last year on unrest, Mr. George Floyd, the discussions about economic equity and whether people have an opportunity to thrive. And what you'll see is, the mayor came out at the State of the City with a very large, a prominent statement around equity, around this is the future, this is where we're heading. And it's important people understand why, more specifically, how we're going to get there. Many people want to get back, just put in a little bit of context. Mm-hmm. People want to get back to where they were before this devastating pandemic. Maybe you had a dream of buying a house. Maybe you had a dream, like your family lived in a 1-bedroom apartment and you wanted to move to a 2. Maybe you had a job. Your job wasn't your favorite job. Maybe it didn't pay you as much money as you think you deserve, enough money as it takes to live, and you wanted a promotion. Maybe you started a business, maybe in North Long Beach, and the economic conditions have changed. The reality is those dreams have now been deferred based on the COVID-19 pandemic. We're all holding on.
Yeah, so many people just
holding on. And the reality is, we all know that if you're just holding on, you had a dream to move to that next place, to buy that home. If you lose your home, it is going to be more difficult to recover. If you slip out of the home you're holding on to and you slip into homelessness, it's going to be that much more difficult in this market to get back into a place. That would be disastrous for our community if that were to happen. If you lose your job and slip into unemployment in this market, it is more difficult. Data shows that we're in a K-shaped recovery. The unemployment rates in general, if you're 27,000 to 60,000 or 6,000 above, unemployment rates are almost back to where they were. 8.5% is where we are. But if you're in that low wage category, if you made less than $27,000, you're looking at 30% unemployment right now. 29.3% unemployment. So we have to make sure that our policies are looking out low earners, people who are renters, so that we don't create a larger catastrophe for our community. That's why the city council's focus, our top focus, is our health, economic, and social recovery for our city. So that means we all have a part to play. Our mayor, our health department, they're laid out to state of the city. Health department is doing a great job in terms of vaccinations. We completed Group A, where we began the rollout of Group B, right?
Yeah, we're moving faster than LA County right now. It's amazing.
All of this is
see how it goes tomorrow.
It's all important, and other counties are looking to us. I remember the discussions when we would have to justify having a health department in the budget. I remember those discussions. And now I think our health department single-handedly saved health departments, health departments in other jurisdictions. They're looking at what do we need to do, and I'm engaged in regional conversations, what we need to do to expand our own local public health capacity. But back to the question, what all this has to do with equity.
Yeah, let's talk with just a couple key things
Sure.
we're doing now specifically, because when we launched, when the city launched this, the reconciliation framework, I think there was a lot of questions of this is a great idea, but there's a lot on the plate. Seems like a major goal. And so what are some key things that are coming up on the plate just in the next month or two that can help us immediately?
So it all starts very, very quickly. This Tuesday, there's a number of agenda items. A lot of this already started. Cannabis equity discussion started at our last council meeting. But starting right now on the 19th, you're going to see a lot of proposals and agenda items that are directly relative to our economic recovery and directly called out in our reconciliation initiative, the racial equity and reconciliation initiative. That was the report that came out, the framework for reconciliation from last summer. So here's some examples. On this January 19th meeting, you're going to start off, you're going to have a study session on implementation of the racial equity reconciliation initiative. You're going to see a number of policies that were called out, like inclusionary housing policy on the agenda. Inclusionary housing is important. It's essentially it's an instrument that ensures that as Long Beach develops and we want a strong economic recovery, we want to have a boom coming out of this. We want to make sure that that boom, that housing production, makes sure that 11% of those units are set aside for very low income families. We want to make sure if there's in lieu fees that come out of it, that those in lieu fees are invested to create more affordable housing, right? You want to have that on the books now. So as the market begins to stabilize, as President-elect Biden begins his national strategy on recovery, Long Beach has that policy in place. That's on Tuesday, 19th, inclusive recovery, the inclusionary housing policy. You also have, I'm sorry?
Well, yeah, that's
right. You also have on Tuesday, you have a motion that's called out in the reconciliation initiative to transform, modernize, update our Human Relations Commission. That's a commission with a great history, a great story. The HRC was brought back in 1989. At the same time, the CPCC was created in 1990 based on the same incident. There was a tragic incident of police brutality and it went viral for 1989. And the city council brought back the HRC, which was disbanded in 1981. It started in the civil rights era, and it also created Citizen Police Complaint Commission. Well, we're right now moving forward. You heard the mayor of the state of the city. We're moving forward. We're modernizing the Community Police Complaint Commission, and the city council is moving forward with modernizing the Human Relations Commission to become the Equity Commission, or be aligned directly with the implementation of the Racial Equity Reconciliation Initiative and other strategies around the city.
That's key, because I think a lot of people in the city don't even know that we have a Human Relations Commission, or don't really understand exactly what it does. If you could explain just real quick what did the Human Relations Commission do, and then how is it going to be different now as Equity Commission? What's the difference here?
Well, the commission is pretty excited to roll up their sleeves and begin that process of redefining. I don't want to jump ahead of them. Our interest would be alignment. Make sure it's aligned with our Office of Equity, our equity plan, and our equity commission are all in line to make sure there's transparency and civic engagement in the process. That's what the hope would be. But historically, you've seen different terms be masked as human relations or human rights. That could mean LGBTQ rights. That could be issues of civil rights. And we've used this commission throughout the years for different purposes. And the idea is you don't want to, you want to just make sure it's aligned with the times, it's relevant, a relevant commission that's very clear on its purpose. And so that's what that's one thing that's coming up on city council, directly aligned with the implementation of it. There's a couple other things on the 19th. You have hero pay for grocery workers. We talked about the K-shaped recovery. How not everyone is, low-wage workers are still hit a lot harder. And so this is a measure of alignment with inclusive recovery plan. You also have the cap on delivery fees for local restaurants. It's no secret, local restaurants are struggling, all parts of town. And we know that with the loss of patio dining, and that will return at some point. But in the meantime, they're more dependent on delivery than ever before. And the delivery platforms charge way too much, 30, 40% of their profit. And so placing a cap on delivery fees is something within our power as a city council that we made a recommendation to do, and that we'll be voting on the 19th. All of these are, I'm sorry.
these two, the hero pay for grocery workers and also the delivery cap. The hero pay for grocery workers sounds great. And I know LA County, LA City of LA has done something different, but how soon do you think that that could actually be implemented? And do you expect any like legal pushback from, some of the bigger grocery chains?
Well, sometimes we need to think about what is the right thing to do. And as it relates to hero pay, this is a concept that was established during the summer. The grocery stores provided this when the pandemic was new and we hit our first spike. This spike is significantly larger than what took place in the summer. And the city council was disturbed to see that going into the holidays, and while grocery stores were being swarmed again and toilet paper was coming off the shelves again, this protection wasn't in place. And so the city council took that step. I'm proud of council member Mary Zendejas for stepping forward and proposing this. The city council supported it unanimously. And I think, the angel is going to be in the details. We have to make sure that the ordinance is legally defensible and that it's in place and utilized. And there are measures to make sure that, hey, there's a sunset on this policy. It should be directly tied to the pandemic in some way. And so the city attorney and the economic development team, I think, has done a great job at figuring out some of these details on this, as well as the cap on delivery, these two important policies that both will need to sunset. The idea is, like we talked about, people are holding on right now.
I think most of us would argue that if anybody deserves hero pay at this point, it's the grocery workers. I mean, talk about being on the front line as well.
Absolutely.
What else? I know we talked
right.
about, what else did you want to touch on that?
Right. There's more. I mean, those are just a few things directly aligned with the implementation.
A lot going on.
There's more, right? So we know that the city, that construction, we went through a significant construction boom, and we're going to continue that. And we hope that the recovery comes back and roars back. We all want a strong local Long Beach economy, but we need to make sure that it helps all people, particularly those most disadvantaged. The project labor agreement is coming back to city council. Within that, we're going to make sure, the city council is going to make sure that the PLA is strong, and that we tighten up our local hire, and that we add language that supports disadvantaged workers. And because all of that these are the strategies that need to align with inclusive recovery. Make sure we have more clarity, more specificity on how the policies we put in place will have a direct impact on the people of our city. And so we want to build more. We want to see more construction. We want to see, as the presidential administration and Congress moves forward with an infrastructure package, that those funds are spent in our communities, and that infrastructure that we build locally has a project labor agreement on it, and that project labor agreement has local hire, it has independent jobs coordinator, it has disadvantaged communities targeting, and that we're able to see a direct linkage between the unemployment levels in our communities and the projects that are taking place in our communities. So that's coming up in February. You also have, in direct alignment, this is a pretty good one. I think you'll like this one, Kelly. Okay. There's been a discussion for a long time, largely led by Khmer Girls in Action and youth groups, around a youth strategic plan and a youth fund in our city. Right, about time, right? So the city council worked with the community groups and moved forward with a motion to do two things initially. It was update the structure of our youth commission and create a youth strategic plan. They've done outreach for over a year. It's finally ready for prime time. It's coming to city council on the 9th. But there's two really important things that are different now in direct alignment with the Reconciliation Initiative. One, the Reconciliation Initiative calls out for the establishment of the Office of Youth Development to really place a real focus on creating a world-class environment for youth in our city. The city council funded this in our FY 2021 budget. And so now on February 9th, you'll hear about the rollout of Long Beach's new Office of Youth Development. And there's another thing that's key. The reconciliation, in that motion, we asked to go to the ballot to find ways to help fund equity. And Measure US was adopted last November with 57% of the vote.
The oil, on the oil.
Right. Taxing oil that's produced in Long Beach to invest in climate, youth, and health. So the youth fund has been something the community has demanded for a very long time. And you'll hear on the 9th how Measure US has created and opened the door for a youth fund in our city to deploy resources into community-based organizations and youth-serving organizations in our city that will all be working together to support our youth. All of this is smart, it's violence prevention, it's upstream. These are the types of investments we think 5 years out. When we think about 5, 10, 20 years out, the impacts in our community, we have to invest in our youth because that's upstream violence prevention.
And what could some of this look like? Could we see more like youth rec centers or mentorship programs? Like, what are some tangible things we could see from this, like that in the city?
You're going to see. So I think creating an office of youth development is a tangible one. It's funded structurally in the budget. I think seeing that Measure US, and we're going to explore other funding sources. Measure US creates 1.6 million. Let's say 50% of that goes out, $800,000 potentially. Let's say half of it goes out for youth and half for climate. Who knows how it breaks down? Yeah. Let's say that that's the case. That's $800,000 out into community-based organizations structurally every year, right? And there will be other ways. Once it's established, there's other ways to identify resources to continue to support. That's real money. That didn't exist yesterday. And you'll see tangible impacts in our communities. We want to see, I always talk about, in my community, how Uptown Little League has to play in a different area because we don't have the concession stands at DeForest Park, or we have the conditions of our fields aren't great. I want to see them see these groups be able to tap into resources to get their concession stands and leveraging the city to do better about our fields and do different things. I want to see, the My Brother's Keeper plan that we worked on. We received national attention. I spoke with the White House on our plan. I want to see that implemented. I want to see boys and men of our color have great opportunities. Yeah. Right? Those are the things that are possible. I'd like to see more programming, but it's about calling your shots. The youth strategic plan, the Office of Youth Development, the youth fund, all of those together will help set the foundation for more investment in youth. That's what it's about, investing in the next generation. There's more. So you have PLA coming, you have youth strategic plan coming. Mm-hmm. At the end of December, the city council voted unanimously to ask city staff to work on a comprehensive economic recovery plan. Comprehensive meaning both social and economic recovery. Social, think about the pandemic. Think about the vaccination. The mayor, the health department doing an incredible job on the vaccine, and we have to continue. We have to do more outreach into our communities around the pandemic, around the vaccination process. Make sure people are educated, understand the science behind it, have some level of confidence in it. All of that. You'll hear more in a study session on February 2nd about the vaccination process. So the next few weeks, again, the 19th of January, significant city council meeting, the 2nd of February, Groundhog Day, and February 9th, you'll see significant motions, significant proposals in front of city council that all directly align with the vision the mayor put forward at the State of the City, our reconciliation initiative, and our comprehensive economic and social recovery for our city.
Now, so this actually touches a little bit what you just spoke about a minute ago. We're getting in some good questions here. So one question, this is a good question. Sure. We've, of course, police department, public safety is our biggest portion of our budget.
Right.
But with the mass rollout of the vaccine and what we're seeing, how vital it is that we've had our own health department and what that's been a benefit. Mm-hmm. Do you see us should we be putting more funding into our health department, and do you see us maybe moving towards that further down as changes?
No, I think we have to continue to look at ways to invest in upstream violence prevention, public health. These things have long-term impacts, long-term benefits rather, to our community when you invest in
support, like moving from budget from the police department to health department.
So we get caught up a lot on should this happen or should that happen. I think long-term, we need to be thinking about just the pie of the city. As public safety budgets grow, it does put pressure on other parts of the budget. That's a problem, right? So we have to think about proportion.
Yeah.
But I also know that I do represent a community that has, we do have crime suppression issues, and we do need to also suppress crime. So I am of the mind of balance. I'm always going to be of the mind of balance. I want the best qualified, best trained police department in America, who is responsive to our community, who knows our community police. I want it to reflect the demographics of our community. Those things require investment. I also want to see top-notch community centers in North and Central and West Long Beach, investments into youth, public health. I want to see funding to support community-based groups and nonprofits through intervention work and things like that. And some of that is going to require difficult conversations. There's, like I said, you're going to see a study session on this coming Tuesday about the Reconciliation Initiative, and you're going to hear from the police department on some of their efforts. And then you're going to get questions. Yeah, there's 2 study sessions happening. And so you're going to get an opportunity to hear directly from council members and hear directly from police and directly from city staff and on these questions this Tuesday. And so we have in local government, I know things are always framed as you're one way or the other. Maybe it can happen that way in Sacramento and Washington, D.C., but in local government, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Local government, you can draw lines. I want every worker to have dignity. We want every family to have, housing and food on their table. And we don't want instances of police brutality in our community. We want public trust in our police department. That's a clear line. And how we draw that clear line is through clear policy and investment. And so we're going to have to make sure that we do those things. But the expectations are high. The standards are high, need to be high for every department in our city, including police, including public health. The standard needs to be high in local government right now.
Right. And let's see, we got some more questions coming in. We're getting quite a few questions. This has been a big concern too, obviously, the issue of homelessness and COVID, people being especially more vulnerable. But what are some of the things that the city is working on immediately to address the issue of homelessness and some of the, especially in the underserved communities?
Absolutely. So you have to think about a few things. So we have to continue to build affordable housing. That's one. We're doing everything we can, from Project Home Key to the inclusionary housing ordinance we're putting forward. But the biggest threat is that to the affordable housing discussion is that we don't have a local source of revenue to help pay for subsidies to make housing affordable. So the only thing you have are policies, and maybe housing ends up being produced in the areas with density or more premier areas, but how do you make sure that they're affordable? Through inclusionary housing policy or by paying for it, but through a local source of revenue. We proposed a housing bond. It wasn't successful, and that's okay. It was not successful. So we have to go back to the drawing board, and there are a number of things I've seen. San Gabriel Valley has created a housing trust for a lot of the cities in that area. They created a partnership on mental health to address homelessness by getting direct funding from the county to address local mental health on the ground. There are things like tax increment finance district. There are other things we can evaluate. And a lot of discussions are happening, and you're going to expect probably in February to see some of that movement on that discussion on city council on that. Now, in terms of homelessness itself, we also know that we have a lack of shelter capacity for the amount of homeless we have in our streets. So we stepped forward, this. We built the Atlantic Bridge community in North Long Beach. It's gone very well. We built it at the time we needed it. We also know that a lot of times building shelters met with so a little bit of angst in the community, and we understand. But during the pandemic, you saw more temporary shelter capacity, more compassion from the community than any time before. So you saw temporary shelters during the winter and during the summer months across the city. We have to identify additional shelter capacity. So my hope is that
we at with our permanent shelter is that
it's open. So the year-round shelter, the Atlantic Bridge community has been open. So that's 120 beds. Right, and where it is, it has the potential to develop into a comprehensive site similar to Villages Cabrillo. And so the idea was secure the site, build the temporary Atlantic Bridge community, which is quality. It's got a dog run, the liquor store in the front. We're talking with a community group about turning it into a market, and it's off to a great start. But we have to build at least 1 or 2 more in our city, and we have to identify the resources to make that happen. And we have to take that development to the next level and make it something permanent and quality like Century Villages Cabrillo. So we have to do that. We also launched a program called the Bridge Initiative. So areas within a 1-year radius of that area are receiving 1 mile radius of the bridge community, as well as the new Project Home Key sites, are going to get additional outreach in those areas to encampments and things like that. And so it's sort of an incentive to be okay with bringing more permanent supportive housing or facilities like that into our community, because the reality is that it's desperately needed. And so that's one thing that's done. There needs to be, we're seeing a lot more poverty and despair and homelessness directly related to just where we are with the pandemic. And so I can't say this enough. We have to make sure that as we move forward, the policies we put in place are thinking about the most vulnerable, like our project labor agreement, our inclusionary housing policy, the very low income, because those are the people that we need, where a significant amount of our population exists, and we have to make sure they don't lose their homes and slip into an entirely different circumstance that will exacerbate our homelessness situation. So there's a lot. There's still a lot to do, and the pandemic, again, a lot of us, we want to get back to where we were. That means get back to the fights and the discussions that we were focused on. We can't let the homelessness discussion go to the wayside.
And one of the key things, aspects of the reconciliation framework was police reform. I know that's
right
for people in the city, across the country. And we've already seen some changes to the Citizens Police Complaint Commission with changes in how they can review reports. And can you just tell us a little bit about some of the changes that you would like to see additionally to the Citizens Police Complaint Commission?
Yeah, I think the CPC. So first of all, it's great that the mayor announced that, like, we knew this was coming. We talked about this in the budget. We talked about this in reconciliation, but to hear it at the State of the City, that's official, right? The city is beginning the process of modernizing this commission, into something that is more transparent, more accountable to the public, and has a more significant degree of oversight. And so, the angel will be in the details. They've got to lay out the plan and the process, and I think some of that will be laid out on Tuesday, like what high level, what that process and calendar will look like, and it has to have community engagement input into that process, because ultimately it has to be adopted by the voters. If you don't go through a process of bringing the community along, how do you expect the voters to adopt it? And so that's something you'll hear more about. The city council will hear more about on Tuesday. And in terms of reform as well, big day Tuesday. And I think the study session starts at 3:00, I believe.
Wow.
And you'll also get to hear directly from the police department about, we haven't heard from the police department. We've heard from the Office of Equity. We've heard from city manager. You've heard from council members. You'll get to hear from the police chief and the police department.
Yeah, we haven't heard a lot of official feedback, at least as far as in the public, about their take on some of these reforms for the CPCC and some of the other areas. So it'll be interesting to hear from them and what they feel about, some of the bigger reforms.
Right. So that's Tuesday. So that conversation begins on Tuesday. So it's an important meeting. And so the city council has this work ahead of us: housing, jobs, homelessness, our recovery, equity, right? It's going to be a really important process to follow, but people should really understand that this is in the interest of everyone. Equity is not something that you say is great to have, right? Equity is a better proposition, a more superior proposition for the future of the city. What it says is you make decisions based on conditions and factors that keep your city from moving forward and thriving. You think about those things in advance. So if systems, if you see that North Central and West Long Beach have had certain economic conditions for many years, but you see other communities with some of the same factors, some same conditions beginning to thrive. Bellflower and Paramount and Downey, you're starting to see those things turn around, but you haven't seen it in certain areas. Then that means that the problem is systemic, and the system is not broken, as people say. The system is doing what it's designed to do. It just needs a more superior design. It needs to be designed with specific outcomes and measurements in place to make sure that businesses can thrive, people can have access to quality education, higher education, have access to economic opportunity and jobs and transit and health and all of those things factor into what is needed for a community to thrive. And ultimately, it means better sales tax generation for the city. It means less crime for the entire city. It means better resource allocations. It means better health for everyone. So equity is really just a better growth proposition for the future of the city.
To sum it up, really, do you feel like 2021, this is really going to be a key year for Long Beach to see some, transformative initiatives? And
it has to be.
Yes, yeah.
It has to be. I mean, too much is at stake.
Yeah.
Right. The issues ahead of us are not new. These issues have been brought up for decades. It's King Day. Let's just keep it real. What would King do on inclusionary housing? What would King do on our economy and jobs and frontline workers in grocery stores work? What would King do as it relates to reforming our Citizen Police Complaint Commission, our Human Rights Commission? Like, what would King say right now about our investments in youth? Yeah. I mean, the issues in front of our city council, I think it's very clear where we need to go as a city. And these we shouldn't be shy about it. This is a more superior, includes more people, and that's where we need to go. And I think the mayor was clear. That's where we're going. I think the city council in this recent unanimous votes on the economic recovery, the reconciliation plan, I think we need to embrace it and show leadership. Look, since we passed the reconciliation initiative, we've seen good things happen. Like, we adopted it. The county of Riverside has adopted a very similar process and studied what we've done. The county of San Bernardino, the city of Fontana, the county of Los Angeles just hired a new executive director of their LA County Office of Equity. It's D'Artagnan Scorza, who ran the Social Justice Learning Institute. They're learning from what Long Beach has done. Yeah. And so, yes, people may have said, hey, and during the summertime, things were ugly. Yes, they were. But Long Beach chose to make a decision and embrace equity moving forward. We are better off for it. The region is better off for it. And I think history will look back on this moment and say Long Beach made the right decisions for the long term. We had to swallow some very difficult medicine, some very difficult pills, but for the long-term health of our city. I think that's what's important.
Great. Well, thank you, Rex. That was great and good topic in honor of MLK Day. And we were also talking about movies earlier, and Rex has a movie that he loves. He wants everybody else to see too. One Night in Miami.
It was great. It was a great movie. Yeah, I know it's on your list, Kelly.
We got a chance to watch too, and Ma Rainey's.
Ma Rainey's Black Brown was incredible too. Yeah, but definitely this week would be a good time to go check out a night in Miami. I think it puts
on Amazon Prime. I think.
Yeah. Go check that out, and I'll also give a plug that every 2 weeks I have a webinar. It's called Civic Talks. The first one we talked about aviation, and it was just after the loss of Gulfstream, and it's a platform to talk. Talk about different issues. The last one, we had a great discussion on the challenges ahead, air quality. LA Times had a big article about, our air quality has been the worst in a decade, and action needs to take place. And I think you'll see action begin to happen. Our next one, we're going to focus on racial equity. We're going to get Dr. Scorza from LA County Office of Racial Equity here. We're going to bring in our chair of the Human Relations Commission. We're going to get our deputy city manager, and we're going to have a great conversation about where we are and the things to come. And after that, we're going to have a discussion on transportation equity, where I'm going to wear my hat as SCAG president. We've invited our new Senator, Lena Gonzalez, who's chair of transportation, and Michelle Martinez, who's on our transportation commission, and some others. And we're going to have a conversation about transit equity and transportation equity in the recovery. So we're going to keep these discussions going. The idea is that we're at home. I'm spending more time playing Uno and tic-tac-toe. My kids are actually Go Fish is the game right now. That's the game. Really focused.
Yes.
She's really my oldest is really good. She beat me like twice yesterday. So we have to keep the discussions going, because we can't have we can't press the flesh, have community meetings the way we used to. We have to continue to engage and embrace the online format, at least for the foreseeable future.
Great. Well, you guys, if you want to hear more, tomorrow night's Tuesday city council meeting kicks off at, you said 3:00, and it's going to be a marathon session with a lot of good topics. So
absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining us. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Thanks a lot. All right.